Hi, everyone. I'm going to go over this PowerPoint on percents. And now this PowerPoint is in Schoology. It is something that you have to look at and go through. But I'm going to put a little bit of like I would a lesson, like if you were in person for percentages. So anyway, now before I get started, there are multiple ways to figure percents. Um, this is just a way that I like. I actually have another assignment in there that kind of shows you how to do it the other way or another way. And if you've always been taught uh, is over of times percent over 100, that's fine. Or part over whole times percent over 100, that's fine with me. But I just want to show you another way. So first we'll talk about what is a percent, and it is another way to write a part of a whole. It refers to the number of parts out of 100 equal parts. So in other words, 6% means 6 parts out of 100. So what is 100% of something? It stands for one whole object. And trust me when I say that my little grid over there has 100 squares. So a little bit of practice. Here's a question. What percent of the box is shaded? Well, if I look, this whole row is shaded. So there's 10. And then there's 3 more. So 13 squares are shaded. So 13% is shaded. Now the next question is, what percent of the box is not shaded? Now you could go through and count all of these empty squares, or remember a percent is out of 100, so you could do 100 minus 13 and you would wind up getting 87. So 87%. And then I just add them up right here to make sure that it equals 100, kind of checking myself there. All right. So the first skill, 2 skills you need to learn is to change a percent to a decimal, and the vice versa, changing a decimal to a percent. So this is the part on changing a percent to a decimal. When you're solving a percent problem, before you can use a calculator or do it by hand, the percent must be changed to a decimal. So here's an example, 52%. Now, at the end of every number, there is a decimal, whether they show it to you or not. So the decimal is actually right here. And so how you change it to a decimal is you move it 2 places to the left. So if I started here and I went over 1, 2, put my new decimal point, this is what it would look like right here. And it is important to put a leading 0 there. Now, changing a decimal to a percent, which is the exact opposite. So whenever you're trying to find the percent of a problem, the answer you get whenever you use a calculator or you hand calculate it, it will come out as a decimal, and you'll need to remember to turn it into a percent at the end. So wherever the decimal point is in the number, it will be moved 2 places to the right. So for example, 0.34 or 34 hundredths. If we moved it 1, 2 places to the right, that would become 34%. And just here's a little bit of guided practice. And remember, you can always pause this and rewatch it. So you could pause it right now, try it, and then see if your answers are correct. But the first one, 0.23, and my directions are to change to a percent. So I move it 2 places to the right. So 0.23 becomes 23%. And same thing with number 2, 2 places to the right, 0.84 becomes 84%. And this number 3 right here, I go over 2 places to the right, and so it becomes 2%. There's no need for any of these leading zeros to be present in your percent. Now the opposite, change these percents to a decimal. Well, I start at the end because it didn't put a decimal anywhere, and I move it to the left 2 places. So 78% go to the left 2 places becomes 0.78. The same thing with number 2, move it over 2 places, it becomes 0.45. Now I have had people miss this one before. Right here's my decimal, but remember the rule is 2 places to the left. So if I go, oops, sorry, I already gave away the answer, but it's okay. If I go over 2 places, I wind up with another 0, and that is very important. And then my decimal point goes right there. Okay, so percent problems contain 3 important numbers. The part, which follows the word is, the whole, which follows the word of, and then percent. A percent's easy to pick out. It's usually indicated by a percent sign or the word percent. So these are just number sentences. These aren't, we'll get to word problems, but number sentences. Which part will be solved? So this example, 75% of 24 is 18. One of these numbers will be taken out, and I'm going to show you how to find each kind when given the other two. So 75 is easy to pick out. That's my percent. 24 is my whole because it follows the word of. And then 18 is my percent because it follows the word is. Now I'll repeat it again. This is one way to solve percent problems. By no means is it the way to solve percent problems. But I use a percent pyramid, and I really like it because it does explain what operation is necessary to solve the problems. And I'm just going to go through all this animation real quick just to show. So basically what this is saying is if when given the part, you're going to divide and the part goes in the calculator first if you're calculating it by hand. But if you're calculating it with a calculator, the part goes in the calculator first. But if you're doing it by hand, the part goes in the house, in the division house. When given the whole and the percent, multiplication is required. So let's talk about finding the part. 30% of 60. So 30 is my percent and 60 is my whole because it follows the word of. And so if the problem is asking to find the part, the necessary operation is multiplication. And here's my percent pyramid. I encourage you to draw the percent pyramid like when you're working on stuff so you can be looking at it as you're working on it. And eventually you will memorize it. But I put the 60 where the whole is, and I put 30 where the percent is. Now, a big mistake people will make is they'll be like, okay, 60 times 30, that's how I solve it. No, remember, we have to change that percent into a decimal. So we've got to move it 2 places to the left. And I know that this PowerPoint explains that. And this is where it reminds you, remember to change the percent by moving it 2 places to the left. So you wind up doing 60 times 0.3 or 0.30. And that does give you 18. So 18 becomes my part there and is my answer. Finding the whole. 25% of what number is 33? So 25 is my percent and 33 is my part because it follows the word is. So drawing my percent pyramid again, and 33 is my part, 25 is my percent. So remember, anytime you're given the part, you're going to divide, and the part will go in your calculator first, or it will go inside of the house if you're doing it by hand. The indicated operation is division, like I said, and this right here is what you would be solving. So, and you also have to remember, we again talked about turning the percent into a decimal. And whenever you divide all of this out, and this is explaining to change it to a decimal again, when you divide all of this out, the answer comes out to 132, which would be my whole and the answer for this one. All right, finding the percent. So what percent of 40 is 8? So 40 is my whole because it follows the word of, and is my, or and 8 is my part because it follows the word is. So here I'm gonna draw my percent pyramid, and 8 goes where the part goes, and 40 goes where the whole goes. So with that being said, and again, I will say it again, 8 is my part. You will divide, and 8 will go in the calculator first, or if you're doing it by hand, 8 will go in the house first. So it is 8 divided by 40. And if you do 8 divided by 40, you get 0.2. Now, 0.2 is not my answer. That's my decimal. Remember, if we're looking for a percent, we have to make sure that we turn our answer into a percent. So 0.2, if I moved my decimal 2 places to the right, it becomes 20%. All right, so, and here's just a few practice ones. I think they're in your homework actually. So I'm just going to leave these up here. It's one of each of them. All right, so now let's talk about word problems for just a second. So the following chart provides keywords. It is a little bit different than solving with number sentences because number sentences you can always go with the is and the of rule, but sometimes there are other words that help indicate what is the part and what is the whole. Sometimes that's hard to find for people within a word problem. So a whole could be, it follows the word of course, original price, principal, beginning amount, overall, and some that would be the part is following the word is, a discounted price, interest, a down payment. I'll emphasize on this one because a lot of times people will mistake a down payment for a whole because it's usually a big number if we're talking about a car or a house. So down payment is a part, it's not a whole. Amount paid and taxes are part of your yearly income, and tips should be part of what you pay at a restaurant or something. And I hope you do tip your waitresses and waiters. So some steps for solving word problems. Number one, obviously, is read the problem and read it twice. Number two, determine what the numbers represent. Is the number the part, the whole, or the percent? And this will also help you know what the question is trying to ask you. Using the percent pyramid, determine what operation is necessary to solve the problem. Then you solve it. And then always ask yourself, not just with percent problems, but always ask yourself, does my answer make sense? Because there may be another step, so be careful. I'm going to show you an example of that in just a second. All right, so here's my first question. When Meyer bought a new stove, he made a $146 down payment. If the down payment is 25% of the purchase price, what is the cost of the stove? So $146 is a down payment, so it's the part, and 25 is the percent. So if you picture the percent pyramid, we had to divide, and the part has to go in the calculator first. And we had to change our percent to a decimal. So it becomes 146 divided by 0.25, and that comes up to $570. So does that make sense? Yes, it does make sense. All right, here's the last one. It says our meal was $39.50, but we got a 20% discount because our food was late. What did our meal cost after the discount? So we read the problem, determining what the numbers stand for. $39.50 is the total cost, so that's the whole. 20 is the percent. We use multiplication. We do 39.50 times, and remember we turn the percent into a decimal, times 0.2 or 0.20, and you get 790. I know it might say in a calculator 7.9, but if we're talking about money, we need to go 2 places past the decimal. So think to yourself, 790, does that answer make sense? It's not a reasonable answer. 790 is not, because if you were given a 20% discount on a nearly $40 meal, you can't tell me you're only going to have to pay $7.90. So what did we do wrong? Absolutely nothing. We didn't do anything wrong. What we did is we calculated the discount. So $7.90 is the discount. So we have to do one more thing. We have to subtract the total cost, or subtract $7.90 from the total cost to find out what you'll pay for the meal. So $39.50 minus $7.90 is $31.60 is the amount paid for the meal. So that is the end of my PowerPoint. I hope you all have enjoyed it. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Reach out to me if you need anything at all.